The welcome return of Congressman Jim Jordan back with us this Monday morning. Congressman, what did you make of Yellen's triple bow?
Well, I think it just is a reflection of just the weakness projected from this administration, period. You know, I always point out the story. This was a year and a half or so ago when Putin first goes into Ukraine. And Mike Pompeo was doing an interview, and the host asked Mr. Pompeo, said, Mr. Secretary, said, would this have happened in a Trump administration? And I thought Secretary Pompeo gave the great answer. He said, well, the short answer is I don't know. But I do know this, it didn't happen in a Trump administration. And that says it all. So with this administration, with the weakness Joe Biden projects from the Oval Office, you see this type of stuff, whether it's our Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, whether it's our Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen. This is just how, remember when Blinken first met his Chinese counterpart up in Anchorage, and he lectured Blinken, yelled at him about how we're a bad country, and Blinken just sat there and took it. He didn't push back. There is no way that happens in a Trump administration. So that's the overall problem, is the weakness that, unfortunately, our current commander-in-chief projects to the entire world.
Congressman, what can you tell us about FBI Director Christopher Wray and his testimony that's coming up before your committee on Wednesday? You got the Durham report, the IRS whistleblower, and now an investigation into cocaine being found at the White House. Well, are we going to get any fresh revelations out of on Wednesday?
Well, here's what I know. Time and time again, Chris Wray has told us everything's fine. He even testified in front of Congress a couple years ago and said you can sleep well at night knowing we have fixed the FISA process. Well, really, there are 204,000 reasons why that statement's not true, because that's the number of illegal inquiries they did to the 702 section of the FISA law, illegally scrutinize American citizens 204,000 times, according to the New York Times. So there's a host of problems. We know that the Justice Department has labeled parents as terrorists or simply going to a school board meeting. We know that the Richmond FBI field office said pro-life Catholics were radicals, they were extremists. And then, of course, there's been the retaliation against whistleblowers like Mr. Shapley from the IRS who came forward, and the DOJ kicked him off the case. Or other whistleblowers have come and told us about some of these issues, what they face, like Garrett O'Boyle. So we're going to get into all those issues, and I think a host of others as well. But the main point is there is no way, Stuart, there is no way Republicans in Congress are going to be for reauthorizing FISA in its current form. And that's due at the end of this calendar year. There is no way we're going to do that. We're going to oppose that and a host of other things as well.
Okay, one last one. I hope you were just watching the show a few minutes ago. New York City considering using public schools to house migrants during the summer break. They say it's the last resort option to manage this surge. What do you think about that? Using schools to house migrants in New York City because you filled up the hotels and the emergency shelters?
Yeah, first you call parents terrorists for showing up at a school board meeting, speaking up for their kids. Now you're going to put migrants in their actual school bill. I mean, it makes no sense. Not to mention what they're doing at hotels. I mean, you talk about driving up the cost. I mean, the migrants are in our schools, in hotels, driving up the cost for working families and everything else. So this is all driven by the decision they made, though, Stuart, on day one.
But what are we going to do?
Joe Biden said we will stop building the wall.
But what do we do? We've got 5 million that are here. They're not going back. Currently, they're not working. What are we going to do here?
Well, we passed the strongest immigration enforcement border security law in American history 2 months ago. It sits in the United States Senate. I would like to see Chuck Schumer take that bill up and pass it. I don't think they will, because the left controls their party, and this is the party that says they're for open borders, not for building a wall, not for keeping Remain in Mexico policy, and just releasing people in the country. But if they would pass that law and Joe Biden would sign it, that would fix the problem, because it puts back in place the policies we had under President Trump. So in addition to that, we're going to continue to do our oversight. And as some have suggested, I think this is something that's being considered in the Congress, and that's the status of Secretary Mayorkas, because he has said time and time again that things are fine, and we obviously know they're not, as evidenced by the report you had earlier about what's going on there in New York City.
Congressman Jim Jordan, you always manage to pack a lot into 3.5 minutes, and you just did that really well. Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate it.